I'm back today with some more underrated horror film recommendations. Today's specific category is horror films that are set on trains, planes and boats. I do think location is really important in horror films because of course it really sets the whole tone, and it is of course a massive part of the story where the characters actually are. I'm a massive fan of claustrophobic settings, and I also really like unique settings, so that's why I have chosen this category today. My first recommendation is Creep. Whilst waiting for her train in the London Underground, Kate falls asleep only to wake up in the middle of the night with nobody around. She soon figures out that she is locked in the station. Just as she thought her night couldn't get any worse, she runs into some unpleasant strangers and ends up being stalked by a relentless killer. Not to get mixed up with the 2014 found footage horror film Creep. This one has the same name, but it came out 10 years prior. I love how this film has such an isolated feeling, being locked in the underground with nobody else around. Almost like it's been abandoned. It's such a scary place to be stuck overnight, especially when there is something that is hunting you. This definitely added to my fear of the underground. The creature design is simple but really creepy. It is literally like something out of a nightmare. We actually don't really see it much at first, what is stalking her, until the second half of the film where the horror elements are really ramped up. It's very suspenseful and has some cringeworthy scenes. You may find yourself getting slightly frustrated by some of the characters' choices, but I would consider this a hidden gem from the 2000s. I do think this film gets overlooked and not spoken about much. Many times when I've mentioned the horror film Creep, people just assume I mean the one from 2014, and I think a lot of people don't even realise that this film exists. This was directed by Christopher Smith, who actually directed the next film on the list, Triangle. Jess and her friends set off on a yacht. As they sail deeper into the ocean, a storm begins to cause them some problems. They come across a huge ship and decide to board it to find shelter from the storm and to investigate what they thought were cries for help. I absolutely love the setting of this film. I love how it feels so far away from civilization. It's a psychological horror film that goes in an unexpected direction. It will definitely have you thinking and on the edge of your seat for most of the film. The tone feels off from the start. It feels uncomfortable and weird from the first scene. It's the kind of film that is just as good on the second watch because you'll notice things that you didn't notice the first time around and just end up having a whole new perspective. Melissa George plays the main character of Jess. She is such a horror icon, especially in the 2000s. She was in so many good horror films. My next recommendation is Red Eye. During an overnight flight, Lisa is seated next to a charming man, Jackson, who she seems to be hitting it off with. But once the plane has taken off, his demeanour completely changes, and Lisa soon finds out that this man is very dangerous. From the start of this film to the middle, the tone definitely changes and it escalates very quickly. It's not super original, but I would say it's perfect if you're looking for a fast-paced, tense thriller that does get a bit violent. It's also under 90 minutes, which is perfect because I feel like it would start to drag if it was any longer. Wes Craven actually directed this film. It stars Rachel McAdams and she is brilliant in this. She plays such a strong character and I feel like we really see that come to life, especially towards the end of the film. My next recommendation is The Tunnel. A journalist and her crew set off into the abandoned train tunnels under Sydney to investigate why the government is being shady about them and to see if this is where all the missing homeless people have gone. This is a documentary style found footage film which just makes it so much more realistic and so much more scarier because it feels like either you're actually there or you're watching a real life true crime documentary. I do think if you just watch this film without paying too much attention, then you definitely won't benefit from its full impact, as we do spend a lot of time with the characters in the dark, which is really quite creepy if you are also watching this in the dark at night. It can be a little bit frustrating when films spend so much time in the dark, as it can be really hard to see what's going on, but it does make it all worth it when the jump scares get you. This is set in abandoned train tunnels, so although I do think Creep is a better film and more entertaining, this one definitely has more tension and feels more realistic. The next film is Ghost Ship. A group of salvagers board an abandoned ship as they try to get it back to port. As they are investigating this ship, they soon run into trouble in the form of something otherworldly. This film is done by the same person who did 13 Ghosts, and it is also a paranormal film with ghosts, but this time is set in the middle of the ocean on an abandoned boat. It's really creepy seeing the characters go through this rundown ship because it's clear that no one alive has been there in a very long time. This has such a good opening scene. It's gory, it's creative, and it's very, very memorable. When doing some research for this video, I was looking looking online and I saw that on Rotten Tomatoes this film has a really low score, which is really sad as I don't think it is the worst film. It's not incredible and it is a bit cheesy, but I do think it is a well-made film. Maybe because it has such a strong opening, viewers get a little bit let down if they've set their expectations too high from watching this crazy scene at the start and then it not having any other scenes that really match its energy. So maybe just go into this one with mid expectations and just enjoy it for what it is. My next recommendation is Train to Busan. A father and his young daughter are travelling via train when a horrific outbreak happens, turning passengers into relentless zombies. This is an extremely gritty and raw portrayal during the early stages of an outbreak, with it being so unexpected and the devastation that something so horrific would cause. Prepare for an emotional roller coaster with this one because it does have some really sad moments that definitely creep up on you. It is a really highly rated film and that is for a reason, because it does go beyond the usual formula for a zombie film with the unique location of the train, as well as adding in the emotional elements, making it a complex and unforgettable watch. Obviously it is a zombie film, so it is very violent. There is a lot of gore and the effects look really good. It does look very realistic. This film is actually part of a trilogy. I think a lot of people do know about the second film, but not a lot of people are aware of its prequel, which is actually an animated film called Soul Station. I am yet to watch both of the other films. They have been on my watch list for a while, so I really need to get round to watching them soon. My next recommendation is The Midnight Meat Train. After helping a woman get away from a group of criminals, a photographer becomes obsessed with seeking out a dark secret on the subway. This is based off of a short story by Clive Barker. This horrifying tale showcases perfectly why sometimes being too curious isn't always a good thing. Some of the CGI in this film isn't the best, but luckily they do also use practical effects, which definitely makes a difference. It is a bit of a shame about some of the bad CGI, but I think it was a very popular time to use CGI in the 2000s, and unfortunately it just hasn't aged too well, especially because of how much technology has advanced. It's just so obvious and looks so out of place to us now. I'm not even sure if it ever looked incredible, but I do remember being super impressed with this film the first time I watched it. It's definitely not shy in the gore and has quite a unique story. It does also have a tone shift, which I really like. My next recommendation is Snowpiercer. In a dystopian universe, civilization is reduced to a continuous moving train called the Snowpiercer. A class system is put in place with the lower class people at the end of the train and classes getting higher all the way up to the higher class people living at the front. People in the lower class have had enough of being treated inhuman and decide to take action. Snowpiercer is a dystopian action thriller with horror elements. Directed by Bong Joon-ho, who is an incredible director and has directed so many incredible films. He actually recently just came out with Mickey 17, which I still haven't seen. I really need to see that soon. He also directed incredible films like Parasite, The Host and Memories of Murder, to name just a few. I feel like some films have taken inspiration from this film. Like the film The Platform has a very similar premise, especially with the class system in a unique dystopian setting. Of course, Snowpiercer definitely wasn't the first of its kind, but it definitely is unique in a lot of ways. For example, the dystopian world that they're living in means that nobody can go outside due to a failed attempt to stop global warming. It is absolutely freezing outside of the train, so much so that it would not be survivable. The train is actually also going all the way around the world and it never stops. It's so claustrophobic to think that all of the remaining citizens of the world are just stuck inside this train. My last two recommendations aren't actually films, they are both mini-series, and the first one is Fear the Walking Dead Flight 462. In this, we follow plane passengers on their flight during the early stages of a zombie apocalypse. And the other mini-series is Fear the Walking Dead Dead in the Water. This has a very similar premise. It is set during the early stages of the zombie apocalypse, but this time they are inside a submarine. You don't have to have watched The Walking Dead or know anything about it to watch these. They are completely separate, although may have some characters that somehow intertwine into the series of Fear the Walking Dead, but that is just completely separate. In Flight 462, the episodes are only about a minute long each, and in Dead in the Water, they are slightly slightly longer, but when watching both of these series all together, they are both still just like short films. You can watch these on the AMC website or on YouTube. So I'm going to leave this video there. I really hope you enjoyed these recommendations, and stay tuned because I will be back with a lot more recommendations for specific categories of horror films. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again in another one soon.